Bienvenidos a todos y todas a este espacio de formación especialmente creado y diseñado para nuestros maestros y maestras de inglés de Colombia. El día de hoy vamos a tener un masterclass con un tema bastante interesante, importante, y es acerca de cómo maximizar experiencias de aprendizaje presenciales y autónomas a través de Flip Learning. Hoy contamos entonces con el apoyo de nuestra especialista, nuestra experta Marta Ramírez, y también el acompañamiento de dos de nuestros docentes del sector oficial, la profesora Ruth Villalba Carvajal y la profesora Rita Ballesteros. Nos van a estar acompañando para ese espacio porque de verdad que encontramos que es bastante importante que podamos compartir esas experiencias y conocimientos que tenemos, no solamente desde nuestros expertos, sino también de nuestros maestros y maestras que están allá en nuestras aulas el día a día. Ahora, este espacio, estas masterclasses hacen parte de Contacto Maestro, que es una estrategia de formación y capacitación del Ministerio de Educación Nacional, donde periódicamente compartimos con nuestros maestros y maestras del país diferentes líneas de conferencias y otros eventos virtuales que nos apoyan para poder precisamente llevarle este tipo de espacios a nuestros maestros del país. Entonces, para poder consultar este evento y todos los otros que ofrecemos desde el Ministerio de Educación Nacional, por favor recuerden que pueden visitar contactomaestro.colombiaprende.edu.co. Como les decía entonces, el día de hoy tenemos entonces nuestra sesión How to Maximize Face-to-Face and Autonomous Learning Experiences through Flip Learning, y este espacio, tal como los otros que ofrecemos desde el Programa Nacional de Bilingüismo, están hechos con el propósito de poderles ofrecer a ustedes un proceso, un esquema de desarrollo profesional continuo. Este espacio de desarrollo profesional continuo cuenta con varias estrategias que todos tienen el propósito de poder construir y llegar a nuestra meta, que es que el inglés sea un vehículo de comunicación, lo cual es la misión de nosotros desde acá, desde el Programa Nacional de Bilingüismo. Entonces, dentro de este esquema de desarrollo profesional, contamos con diferentes estrategias, como es esta masterclass, pero también tenemos otras que van apoyando a los docentes de diferentes maneras y según también las necesidades que se vayan viendo en cada una de las regiones del país. Tenemos Pedagogical Support, que es docentes que me imagino que hay muchos conectados, donde pueden ver y encontrar cómo usar estas estrategias en el aula. También contamos con Innovation Clubs, donde nuestros maestros que ya han participado en estrategias anteriores pueden ya buscar soluciones a problemáticas que de pronto tenemos en las aulas. Tenemos también cursos para poder aprender cómo formular proyectos en temas específicos como el turismo y la cuarta revolución. Y por último, English for Teachers, donde los docentes pueden continuar manejando y mejorando, ese nivel de inglés que tenemos tanto para los docentes como directivos docentes. Entonces, Masterclass hace parte de este esquema. La idea es que todos nuestros maestros del país se puedan beneficiar de este espacio y se desarrollan de diferentes temas, pero siempre dando técnicas específicas que ustedes pueden usar en el aula. Entonces esperamos que el día de hoy, así como en todas las otras de las anteriores, puedan entonces conocer estas estrategias y aplicarlas en sus aulas. Nuestras diferentes masterclasses se desarrollan, algunas en inglés, otras en español. El día de hoy la tendremos en inglés. Entonces voy a hacer el switch. Pues today we invite you to visit last comments that you can visit and find out and have all of the access to the calendar from the Ministry of Education. And you can find this in echo.colombiaprende.edu.co to find over 3,000 resources to support your teaching. And finally, welcome Marta, and we can't wait to hear about all of the strategies that you have to offer us today. Welcome to today's masterclass.
Thank you for having me. So we have all been living many challenges this past year. And well, first it was emergency remote teaching, then online teaching, and now we have hybrid learning. So if you are like me and you're looking for new ways, or you have been looking for new ways and new strategies to approach hybrid learning or this new reality that we're living now, then this masterclass is for you. In today's session, we are going to have two special guests, so let's get to know them. So, John, are you there?
Hello,
Okay.
can you hear me?
So we're going to introduce
Hello,
two of the
Marta.
teachers today. Hi, John. So nice to see you again.
Okay, yes. So I'm sorry, there was something wrong here, but I'm back. So let me say hi to you and hi to everybody out there. So I'm just here checking on the YouTube chat. Everybody's saying hello. So we say hello back to them. My name is John Polito. I'm going to be the moderator for this 12th masterclass. Can you believe it, Marta? 12th masterclass. So I welcome everyone. As you know, and as Tatiana said, this masterclass is a strategy by the Ministry of Education as part of international cooperation agreement by with the British Council. Something I love about this professional development program and these master classes is that we give teachers voice and the chance to share their experiences around the different topics that we talk about every week. So I would like to start by saying hello to Rita Ballesteros. I'm sorry, Rita Ballesteros. Hello, Rita.
Yeah, hello, John. Hello, everybody.
it's
So,
it's it's a pleasure to have you here. You are now in Boyacá. You're in Tunja, right?
yes, yes. First of
And
all, thank
you,
you for the invitation. And
yes,
yes, John, my name is Rita Ballesteros. Currently, I work at Institución Educativa Julio César. It is located in Tunja. Tunja is the capital of Boyacá. Tunja is a historical city with a lot of old architectural buildings.
I'm
It's
very
a
cold.
nice place to live and to work. And today I would like to share my experience, some of my activities and my experience at the school. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Rita, it's a pleasure to have you here. Along with you, we have another teacher from Boyacá. Today's turn is Boyacá. Today is all about Boyacá. And we have Ruth Villalba Carvajal. She is currently in Paipa. Ruth, say hi to everybody, please.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. And hi to all the teachers from Colombia who are here. It's a pleasure for me. And thank you for the invitation.
Okay, can you please tell us something about yourself? I know you work at the Institución Educativa Tomás Vázquez Rodriguez, that you hold a Bachelor in Mother Languages and a Master in Educational Technology. You've been working for quite some years on the language field. Can you tell us anything else about yourself?
Of course, John. I work in Paipa, as you mentioned before. This is a very small town in Boyacá, and it's one of the most beautiful towns. You are invited because there are many foreign people who come here just for the thermal baths. So
Yes.
it's a must for any person to come here and to enjoy. Also, I teach English at 8th, 10th, and 11th grades. I have been teaching in this school for about 5 years, and
Great.
for me, it's a great opportunity to share my voice as a teacher. Thank you for this chance. Thank you for listening to the teachers' voices. I hope that this session, I'm sure that it's going to be really, really wonderful, and we are going to enjoy to learn and to share.
Definitely, Ruth. It's a pleasure for us to have you here. And as you said, your voice and your experience is what makes this master classes valuable. Of course, we always, as you know, have an expert on the master class. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a master class, you know. And she introduced me first. Now is my chance to say hello to our dear Marta Ramirez, teacher
Hi
at
again.
again. Okay, Marta is a teacher at the Universidad de los Andes, UPTC, WIS. She's been around for more than 17 years teaching, and for the last year, she's been leading and specializing on in growth mindset and flip learning. That is what brings us all today here. Marta, this is our second masterclass, right?
Yeah.
Together.
Yes.
And it's always very, very good to have the chance to be with an expert on the field. And I know that you, along with the teachers who are working with us today, we're going to enrich the conversation. We're going to take a lot of tools to our classes, and I know there's going to be a growth experience, just to call it that way. So before moving on, I would like to ask teachers there on the YouTube channel to tell us where they are from. Okay, I know everybody says hello and says, hey, I work at Institución Educativa this and that. So please tell us where you're from. Marta, can you say hello to everybody?
Hi everyone, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm very excited to talk about one of my biggest passions, which is flipped learning, and to share with you some very specific techniques that I consider will be useful for you in this new reality we're living. And I'm also very excited that we have two special guests that come from Boyacá, and that actually both of them had their BAs at UPTC, because since I'm a teacher there, I hold UPTC and Boyacá like in a special place in my heart. So I'm very excited, to be able to share with them as well these experiences and learn from them.
Amazing. Well, so these are our guest teachers, our expert today. And I guess that before moving to our first section, Marta, I want to remind all the teachers, because they are already asking about the certificate. We're starting. Remember, you find the certificate, the registration form on the top of the chat, and you're going to see also some QR codes along with the presentation that you may scan and get access to the certification, the registration form to get your certification. So, Marta, are we ready to start with our first section?
We are, absolutely.
So, challenges and opportunities.
All right. So yeah, today I want to start by having a conversation and inviting Ruth and Rita to talk with me a little bit. I want to get to know I want to get to know a little bit about you. So I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions. The first question is, can you tell us about your context? So let's start with Rita. Let's start with you.
Okay, so as I said at the beginning, I work at a public school. My school is a little one. I think that it is the smaller in Tunja. And now we are working at the school with half of the students. It's like hybrid learning, because half of my students come to school for 1 week from Monday to Friday, and the other part, now I have to say, clarify in quotes, connect online. So the students at home, they receive tasks on the platform, classroom platform, and it's sure that not all of them can connect, but they try to do the tasks and upload them. So we have in the school the half of the students for a week, and then we change it. The other group come to school and we clarify that and explain more about the topic, and the other group receive tasks to do at home. This is the way we are working.
Okay, that's so interesting. So you're like alternating face-to-face instruction, but still hybrid, right?
Yes.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank
you so much, Rita. What about you, Ruth? How are you teaching these days?
Okay. Now we are working something like hybrid. That we are working face to face with most of the students. The parents were asked to sign a consent form, and they are like pressed to send the students to the school because the government gives them a plan alimentario escolar. So if the students don't go to the school, they don't get that benefit. So they are under pressure to go to the school. We have a platform. We upload the guides to the platform so they can download them. We explain the guide in the school, in the classroom, but the students who don't go there, they have to download it and develop it at home with no explanation. We just get the evidence. They send us kind of pictures or short videos to our mails or to the WhatsApp, and we check them, but we don't give them any feedback. So they don't have explanation, they don't have feedback, but they try to do something. That's the way we're working.
Okay, that's a very big challenge, and I think the techniques that I'll be sharing today will be very helpful, I hope, for these contexts that both of you are living, which are, of course, they're hybrid, but they're different. No, like we have different conditions. In my case, I'm also not alternating. I have some students go physically to class, and the others just they can't go, so they connect. But as we can see, there are varieties of ways in which our new reality is seen through hybrid teaching. Okay, another question to the both of you is, I'd like you to think of one challenge that you have faced with this specific context that you're describing. So let's go with you, Rita.
Okay, so one challenge, what I prefer to do in my class with my students is to do role plays. And to do this, I follow these steps. First, of course, we identify the objective of this task. And second, we choose the characters who are going to act each one of the situations, and then the scripts and narrations, of course. Then I assign roles to the students, but sometimes I prefer that they can do this by themselves. So they decide what to do in this activity. And of course, I assist the students with pronunciation, with vocabulary structures. And here enter some students from the same group who are in advantage to help the students with this topic that is pronunciation. Then we rehearse the role play, we adjust the roles, and finally they do the presentation in front of the class. And finally, we evaluate the activity.
Okay, so so this activity of using role plays has been, I mean, it has been a challenge in this new reality. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I really like to engage students in this kind of activities because they have been demonstrating that they can improve pronunciation and the use of language in this with this kind of activities.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rita. Okay, Ruth, what about you? One challenge that you've had?
I think that the challenge that I have faced the most here is poor internet connection for my students, of course, and for me, because at school we didn't have, there is no internet connection for teachers, even for the students, and at home they didn't have. I don't know if I forgot to mention that I have students who come from rural areas, and there are some of them that they don't have even energy. So what can we expect from them when they don't have internet connection? So that is the biggest challenge.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I think we've all lived that, the internet challenge, right? Going into this virtual world of teaching. Okay. One last question, and this is going to connect with the techniques that I'm going to share with you and with the audience. And it is, how do you present content for your classes? Rita.
Okay, I present content through the classroom platform, So there I upload guides that I prepared, helping by some textbooks. Especially I work with English Please from the Ministry of Education. And then I upload the guides to the students. I consider with enough instructions specific for those students at home. And I upload as well videos, links with videos from YouTube. They have to watch them to give to answer some questions after them. And at the school specific, we use real material from home. And I would like to share that my students, they are so enthusiastic when I say, students, tomorrow we are going to work this and this, what can you bring to the classroom? And then using all the care that we have to have due to the pandemic situation, they show and they interact with real material in the classes.
Okay,
it's
that's
specific like this. And of course with PPTs, that's the way.
okay. All right. So you're using, you're showing content in many different ways from what you
Yes.
tell us. Okay. Thank you, Rita. Ruth, what about you?
Well, I have to say that I create my own material. I think it's more meaningful for the students if they see me in a video explaining them. So I record myself at home and I upload the video to YouTube. Then I design the guide, of course, and I just write the link so they have to go there. If the students don't have the chance to go to YouTube because it consumes more data, I send them the video by WhatsApp. I also record my own voice just for them to listen to my pronunciation. When we are in class, I have a small classroom, but I have a tape recorder, so I play myself there. So it is motivating for them because they said, "Oh, it's the teacher." So you can do it at home, do it and listen to yourselves, and you can learn better. That's I create my own material. We didn't have books, we didn't have textbooks. For us as teacher, it's forbidden to ask them for books, for textbooks. And we didn't have the books from the Ministry of Education because I know that they sent some of them, English based and way to go, but we didn't have them. But that is the way I create my own material.
Okay. So you're a YouTuber.
It kind of.
Okay.
You're a YouTuber. Awesome. Okay. All right. Yeah. So you're also using different ways. It's so interesting to see the variety of how we're teaching content. No, in the case of both of you. Okay. So thank you so much for answering these questions about these challenges. And definitely there are. I mean, I can see there are a lot of opportunities with what we're doing as well, right? We have these challenges, but then there are many opportunities that come with specific strategies that we can use and techniques, and well, the ones that I will be sharing with you today. All right. Okay. So I want to talk about the role that teachers have today. I want to mention we have been going through we've been going through very uncertain times. For like in every dimension, I think, of life. And as teachers, this has been a huge challenge. And this is a saying that I love, that, real heroes don't wear capes, they teach. And I think this has been more real now through pandemic, and showing, the power that we have as teachers to be creative, to be resourceful, to be supportive with our students and our classes. And so this is an invitation just to keep going, keep wearing that cape that other people might not see, but we know the work we do. We know the effort that goes into every class we teach, every lesson that we plan. And I'm so happy to be able to share with you today some of these ideas. Okay, so you're going to see, dear audience, that you're going to see this question whenever my Bitmoji appears with a question mark. This is a question for you. And the idea is that in the chat, you're going to use the hashtag that appears under the question to answer that question. So this is the first thing I want you to think about. And, what factors are affecting our students' learning today? And I do want to take a moment and discuss this a little bit with you, Ruth and Rita. What factors do you think our students are learning today? Maybe you can mention one or two factors. Actually, Ruth mentioned one already. No internet access is a factor that is affecting students' learning. So I'd like you to maybe share one or two that you have been going through. Ruth, let's go with you. You mentioned one, but what other factors do you think are affecting our students' learning?
I think there are two more factors. The other one is family issues and instability, because we know that the students come from different kind of, let's say, problems at home. And the other one is bullying at school. They come very shy from this pandemic, and they don't want to interact with others. So they think they suffer from bullying. So I think those are the factors.
Okay. Thank you, Ruth. Rita, what about you? What do you think? You are muted, Rita. I think you're muted. We can't hear you.
Yes, I am unmuted. Okay, sorry. I agree with Ruth in this factor that is family relationship. At the moment that we are living this pandemic, the students are facing a lot of problems at home. So they have to learn how to solve them. Sometimes they go to school to ask for instructions, for guidance. Someone can help them at the school, but this is a problem that they are facing now. And the other, that I think that other factor that affect our students' learning is ability to prioritize their objectives. Sometimes they have a lot of work to do, not only in English, but in other classes, and they don't know how to prioritize this, what to do first, and they get confused, of course, for this amount of work. So maybe we have to dosify the work for them.
Okay. All right. So you've mentioned, just to kind of recap, and I'm going to invite John to let us know, what's going on in the chat. You've mentioned previously internet connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Family issues, right? Like there's a lot going on in terms of emotions, bullying, and the ability to prioritize students' objectives, like for them to really know, what they should be paying attention to in order to learn. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so let's see what's going on in the chat. And let's see if John is around. John, are you there?
Hello, yes.
Hello.
It takes a couple of seconds for me to
does.
be on the show. But yes, I was listening to your conversation while I was reading the chat, and I was also thinking about that this uncertainty that you mentioned is causing, or was causing, a different type of problems, right? Are going to be are we going to be healthy? Is my family going to be healthy? My teachers, and we have seen that. Okay, teachers being sick, teachers passing. It's been a reality. Families, and what we have in the chat here is that, for example, let me read here. Andrea Medellin Herrera, she agrees with you in terms of the lack of connectivity, but also as being remote and not in touch with other people. She also mentions the motivation for learning sometimes. Erika Vargas and other teachers mentioned social and emotional situations, right? Derived from many factors, but they are talking about that. Family problems, economic problems, because we know that the pandemic has hit us hard in some other parts of Colombia. Parents losing their jobs and all, so that affects them. We also have Diana Salazar, who you know very well. I'm saying hi, Diana. I couldn't
Hi,
be.
Diana.
I couldn't be last time with you. I had something, but here is a. She says learning factors: span of attention is affected by the load of information, and which is I totally agree. Myling Elisa Cardenas says, Myling, allowing enough time to get familiar and confident with new learning tools, apps, websites, software, etc., and tutoring just to deal with technical issues. Okay, so we have a lot of comments here. I could take forever, but that's some of the things that teachers are saying. Thank you, teachers, for sharing your thoughts on the YouTube chat.
Okay, thank you. I think there's some great ideas here, and we're recognizing the variety of factors, right, that are affecting our students' learning. So I think like something I ask myself is, like which of these factors can I control, right? The question to you, like which ones can we actually control as educators? And when we recognize these factors, then what action can I take? So from the different factors that have been mentioned, we can't really control, what goes on in families. I mean, there are things that are kind of, that get out of our hands, but we could control how we react, or strategies we take for motivation. We could control the amount of information that we give students, right? How difficult or how easy it is. We can control, or we can try to control, or work strategies to work on students' confidence in the use of tools, the use of strategies, etc. And there's one factor that hasn't been mentioned, which I think has been, that connects to the internet situation, and it is access. There's a huge factor that affects students' learning, and it's when they don't have access to what we're teaching, right? In hybrid learning environments, if I provide us an explanation and the student didn't connect, oops, sorry, you didn't connect, so you have no access, I'm sorry. And so I think that's one of the big aspects that I want to work on today with what I want to share with you. And the key term that kind of wraps around this many of these factors is differentiation. So just briefly, differentiation can be understood as tailoring instruction, right? And when we tailor instruction, we are aiming at responding to how students vary when they learn. Let me clarify this a little more. So let's go back to the tailor, right? You're a tailor. As teachers, let's imagine we are tailors. We're going to make a beautiful dress or a beautiful suit for our students. And this suit, right, doesn't necessarily come in the same size, right? Because learning does not come in the same size. We all have different sizes, right? Some of us are S, M, L, XL, etc. And so when we're thinking about student learning, the first thing is to recognize that teaching has to take on different roles and has to take on different approaches depending on our context. So within this concept of differentiation, we take into account learning preferences, right? We might have students that have a specific type of preference, maybe for reading or maybe for just listening, etc. Student interests and their level of readiness, right? As English teachers, we have, I think, all our lives encountered students who are in an A1 level that are minus A1, or that are in a B1 level, right? And we know that they are not there yet. So we have to make some decisions. Carol Tomlinson is, the guru of differentiation. And she tells us that when we differentiate, we need to take into account a learning profile, right? How students learn, readiness, which we see in the center, and interest. And the decisions that we can make are around the content, right? I can decide how I explain content or how I present the content, or what type of content I'm providing students. I can make decisions about the types of activities for the process. I can decide on how students are going to demonstrate what they know through the product. And I can also make decisions on affect, which was one of these one of the factors that's affecting students, right? But for today's masterclass, we're going to focus specifically on content and specifically on flipping content and what techniques and action steps we can take to differentiate and allow students to always have, or as much as we can, have access to that content. So let's start thinking, dear audience and dear guest teachers, what resources do you use to teach content? Now, so I want to invite Rita and Ruth again to have a conversation with me. And you already mentioned some of the ways that you're teaching content, right? So Rita, you were saying that you use that you upload guides, right? So one resource you use is guides. You mentioned video, you mentioned links, you mentioned the use of real material, and you mentioned PPTs, right? Using slides. And Ruth, you mentioned being a YouTuber, even though you didn't say it in that way. You create your own material, you record, and you also, you record video and you record audio. So a question to you is, can you tell us, what is your favorite, because we already know what resources you're using in terms of the types or the modes that you use for content. Can you share with us one tool that you love to use? Let's start with you, Ruth. What is one tool that you love? Okay, you mentioned YouTube, no? But is that your one tool?
Another resource? Well, I think that the students need to have a guide to complete, to have them clear in the instructions and in the activities. And it's a complement with many resources. I think we are very creative and we can complement this guide when we have them face to face, of course, because when they are not in the classroom, for those students are really hard. And as I told you, if they don't have the explanation of the teacher, more complex. That I think that the guide is excellent with different kind of activities, not too long activities, but the most important is that they have the instruction clear, that they understand what they have to do, and obviously my attitude when I ask them.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Rita, what about you? Rita, I think you have your microphone off.
I don't know what happened. I moved again. Sorry. Okay, so I think I support my work with the guides, yes, but in those guides I include the links to students and they can watch the videos. And when they come to the classroom face to face to work with me, I prefer to motivate them to use real materials, to use realia, to act, to interact with their classmates. So at the beginning, when we went to school in July, all the students were like me today, mute, yeah, and they covered their mouth with a mask. So for me, it was impossible to listen to them, to correct, to interact. But now I think that we are in progress. And now they feel free to talk, to share what they have found in the guide. And they are really motivated. I think that we have been working on this motivation. Motivation has been an important aspect to support, to improve.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing those experiences. I'm going to share one experience and then I'll invite John to join us and tell us what's going on in the chat. So I want to exemplify a little bit what happens with flipping, and it is this is imagine these are my students, right? And these are my university students. And something that is happening a lot is some of them miss class, some of them can't connect, some of them, they have power outage, different situations that don't allow them to go to class or connect to class, or just, So what I have noticed when I flip the content, right, when I make the content accessible to students in different ways, is that number one, I can, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm super, but okay, I'm there, here I can kind of lay back a little and say, okay, you're going to miss class, don't worry. I have prepared these resources for you, such as, Rita with her guides and her links, etc. Ruth with your YouTube videos. In my case, I also have material that I create. And if this material contains the explanation, like the key information, that content that has been prioritized, then if a student misses classes, at least they will not miss the access to the key information, right? And I think that's the big thing here. That's what allows us to differentiate and keep in mind flipping the content. So, John.
Hey.
A little, there you go.
It was quick this time, Marta. I was okay. Rita, okay, they live. I just want to say, Rita, do you know Horfman Maecha? If you do, he's saying hello on the chat, and he's saying, Rita, I admire you, and he sent this emoji hugging you. So I just wanted to let you know that. And back to the topic, the hashtag content resources. We have different things. I posted my favorite one so far these days is Genially. I love Genially. It's one of the best tools for me.
Top for me.
Yes, top for me. Giovanni Ortiz saying, I generally use reading or audio apps about the topics. Gloria Inez Jurado says, I use guides, videos, finally practicing with the 4 skills. Oh my God, I have a visitor here. I'm sorry, everybody. Oh my God, I don't know where he came from. We also have other people saying about Genially, Kahoot, karaoke apps, quizzes. Carla Hernandez, thank you for sharing. We also have Gladys talking about, Karen, designing. She says that she loves designing her own resources to teach content. We have Nearpod. We have, oh my God, different resources here teachers are sharing. But the most important thing here is, I guess, what you said, Marta. The right tool for the right content that I want to share. All right, just being very precise on the information I want to share with students, not overwhelming them, but being very, very strategic on the content. That's what teachers are saying.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, all right, amazing. So are we ready for our next section?
I'm ready if you are, but I guess you are. And I want to say something before we go on. I want to remind teachers to stay tuned, because there's some information that I know if you've been in these master classes for the last for the last weeks, we've been sharing this information about the strategy Eco Kits. We have thousands of resources created by teachers, by Colombian teachers, take into account the Colombian context. Don't miss it. Stay tuned. And after that, we'll be back with our next session, Teaching Toolbox, because I guess you have tons of them. Here we go.
ECO stands for English for Colombia, and it is an educational radio program designed to promote English language learning while exploring the cultural wealth of our country. It is designed for kids and presented by kids as well. Irene, Maxi, and Ramon are in charge. Throughout the program, they share their life stories, fun adventures, and interactions with other characters as they practice English. Remember to visit eco.colombiaaprende.edu.co to access other Eco Kids resources.
All right. Are we ready for these teaching techniques? I'm super excited, particularly because I've been flipping for about, I think, 7 years now. And I've had a lot of aha moments during the pandemic. And it's been a tough challenge, but it's been so enriching to face a situation that literally like pushes us like abruptly and kind of aggressively pushes us out of our comfort zone. And so the first technique that I want to share with you is flipping instructions. And for this, I want to invite Rita and Ruth to join me because we're going to be working together to understand, what this technique is about. And so just as I mentioned, I've been flipping for a lot of years, and something that had not occurred to me was to flip instructions. So before we get into, understanding what this means and, how can we do this, I have a question for the audience. What instructions do you repeat the most? So imagine yourself in the classroom, physical, virtual, and the same for you, Rita and Ruth. So put yourself, if you need to close your eyes, close your eyes. Okay, I'm in the classroom. What do I tend to repeat the most? Then I'm like, oh my gosh, again, I have to, like it's that moment of why do I have to repeat? I already said it. Okay, so let's get started with Rita. Let's start with you. What instructions do you repeat the most?
Okay, I think their demonstrations and group work. Demonstrations, I do this at the beginning of the class. And those students in advance start working immediately. And those students who need special instructions because they have difficulties, I have to give more time to them. And during the class, I monitor them. If it is necessary, I have to give again the instructions. It is no problem. And group work, I consider it is important, and some students in the group can help the others. And this is very good because the students who need help, they feel comfortable, they feel very good with the classmate helping him or her in the class.
Okay, so I understand that, for example, what you mentioned about group work, sometimes instead of you repeating the instructions, students are repeating it for their classmates in the group. Yeah, like they go back and tell them, oh, this is what we're doing. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that.
All right. Okay. What about you, Ruth?
Okay, I think that the instruction that I repeat the most is in English, please. Why? Because they are used to work in the English class, but they write and speak in Spanish. When I finish explaining the guide, they always ask, in English or in Spanish? And I tell them, well, we are in English class, so you have to do the activities in English. But when they're going to present them to me, most of them have them in Spanish. And I said, in English, please. I have to repeat it many times.
Okay. Story of our lives.
Yeah, and it
I
happens.
think that's happened to all of us. All
Or,
right.
I talk to them in English and they answer to me in Spanish. And I say, but you are understanding because you were answering to me. Try to speak in English. Try to say that. It doesn't matter if you are right or not, but in English, please.
All right. Okay, I'm going to ask you to stay here with me because we're going to do a challenge together. But before, I want to ask John, what is the audience telling us? What types of instructions are being repeated in the classes?
Well, teachers are just starting to participate, and I have a couple of comments here. For example, Adiela Mosquera says, hashtag be quiet when classmates are talking. Also, we have okay, that like they're using also like expressions that students are supposed to say in class, like what's the meaning of, so or read the instruction and tell me what you understand. Also, we have like also teachers participating or mentioning classroom routines. Okay, maybe with little kids, like clap your hands, raise your hands. Also, we have uh, repeat after me in English, please. Classroom instructions. We have a variety of. Oh, now we have teachers commenting. Now it is on fire. But yeah, definitely, that's basically what teachers are saying right now.
Okay. So I'm going to explain what is this when I say, flip instructions.
Yes.
I'm going to clarify what this means and kind of break it down.
Please
and connect it to differentiation. So I will clarify, like, why does this allow me to, cater to my students' needs or take into account those variances. So the first, this is like the key here, right? This is what I have encountered works very well when I design instructions for a specific activity. So I'm going to break it down one by one. And I'm going to ask Rita and Ruth to join me because we're going to do a challenge together. Okay. So what you're seeing here, we're going to go step by step. And as I explain, or give an example, I want you to kind of talk with me. We're going to talk through flipping instructions design. So this is the challenge. For you, our guest speakers, and for the audience. It would be great if, as I'm also, talking to Rita and to Ruth, that you're also, thinking of your own class. You're thinking of a group activity. Maybe you're taking note on a sheet of paper just to kind of follow step by step. And this is to demonstrate that we can create instructions on the go, right? How beautiful or how elaborate doesn't really matter. What's important is the content and giving students access to this content so we can avoid repeating ourselves. All right. So Rita and Ruth, are you ready? We're ready? Okay. Okay. So the first one. I'm going to give an example. This is just so that, you can also see the example and the audience can see this, how does this work within a design? Again, it doesn't have to be super mega elaborated in a design tool. No, we can do it on paper. We can do it in a PowerPoint. We can do it in a Word doc. It doesn't have to be, what matters is the content. Okay, so let's go with time. So I want you to think of that activity. Have you thought of the activity, the group activity? Sorry, I'm like
Yes.
on the go, but I'll give you some seconds to think about it. Yes? Okay, Ruth?
Okay.
Yes.
What do you have?
I think of my 11th graders, and I think that the activity that I selected is applying for a job. So they are going to make an interview.
Okay. Applying for a job. All right.
Applying for a job. Yeah.
Okay. And what about you, Rita?
I think we can work with 10th graders giving advice.
Giving advice. Okay, great. All right. So we've got, let's say we've got the topic, and I imagine in your mind you know what the activity is, right? So step number 1, how long does this activity take? Just the activity, the one of giving advice, the one of applying for a job. How long does it take, Ruth?
5 minutes. The result, you mean the result? The final result or the complete?
No, the full activity.
Oh, the full activity. Oh my gosh, 2 hours, maybe 3.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're thinking of, an activity that requires group work, that requires specific
Assessment.
steps, right?
Yeah.
So if it's 2 hours, it's 2 hours, right?
Okay.
Rita, what about you?
Okay, I think that with the final presentation, 2 hours as well. 2 hours as well.
Okay. So when we talk about time, why is it important to design something that shows students time? Because it allows them to pace themselves. If I know I have 30 minutes to do a task, or 2 hours, or 15 minutes, right? I know, I start pacing myself. Oh my gosh, I have 10 minutes, 5 minutes left. And there's strategies we can use as teachers as well. But pacing, like, this gives them a focus. Okay, this is the time that I have. And they have to learn to manage that time as well. The next one, turns. So we're thinking of group activities. Flipping instructions doesn't have to be group work, but here we're thinking like more elaborate activities that require groups. So one recommendation is to tell students how they should take turns. In this example, students are told that they're going to take turns in alphabetical order. So if they're in a group of 4 students, they're going to go alphabetical. Okay, you're A, you're C, you're F, you're J, right? And they know, and this allows to save a lot of time. Like, you, no, me, no, you, no. Saves time. And it leads to equal participation, right? Because when you say take turns, you're telling students, all of you have to participate. So can you think of maybe, or have you used a taking turn strategy? Like how can students, what do you think about that activity? Like, how could they take turns? Ruth, let's go with you.
I always ask, for example, what date is it today? So let's suppose today is September the 29th. So I say number 29 in my list, whatever who is. And I say, if there is no number 29, well, 2 plus 9 equals 11. Okay, number 11 in my list. And it works.
Okay, so you use like number strategies to decide who's going to start, etc. Okay, interesting. What about you, Rita?
Okay, sometimes I start with numbers as well, but we start, for instance, 1, 3, 7, 9, and then I involve 2, 4, 6. Previously, the students receive a number during the class, and I say, you here, you there. And it is important to give them the time. You are going to say this in minutes. And the problem I have and I face is that some students, I had to force them to speak, to say something. Because you have the turn. Yes, that's good. You have the turn, but teacher, I don't want, or I am mute, I don't want to say anything. So I have to look for one more strategy, please. I'm going to give you confidence. Please try to say like this.
Okay, great. All right, so we've got different strategies here with the numbers in different ways. Okay, the next one is rules. So here in my instructions, my rule for students was that they had to use the academic vocabulary, right, to describe perspective and stance, which was the focus of these instructions you're seeing here. That was you have to use this. This is the rule, right? Can you think of any rules that you can put in your instructions? Let's go with Rita, just to kind of switch.
So of course that to extract the rules, to infer the rules that they are going to apply, in this case should and shouldn't, first I give them, of course, the vocabulary and then some text to read, and then they infer, and I ask them, should you do this at home? No, teacher, this is not for me. I must obey my parents. What should you do? If you, for instance, clean your room or go to school or get the best grade, what should you do in your free time? Teacher, I should watch a TV program, for instance, or I should go out with students. But always they have to infer the rules. I prefer to do this by this.
Okay. So this is interesting because you're talking about the rules of the language that they're using, which is implied right within like the language section. But if you had to give them a rule, like you told them, you need to follow this rule during this activity.
Okay. So I say to them, please clarify, you have to do this and this and this. This group is going to do this, the second group is going to do this, and then we have to change. You did it, now you change, you are going to do this.
Okay. So you give them rules like in terms of
Yes.
like the type of task and,
Mhm.
then they switch. Yes?
Yes, I switch.
Okay. All right. All right. Ruth, what about you?
Well, I think I have many rules. First of all, is try to use English. It doesn't matter if it is correct or not. Number two is avoid translator. If I find something that I can notice that is translator is not valid for me, so avoid it. And if you have any question, ask me. Not the students, but me. And those are the main rules.
Okay.
And related to the guide and to the workplace, hand it in time. Ask me if I notice that they don't finish and I can give them more time. It's different that if I see them chatting or playing or doing something or working on a different subject in my class. That's different. So the rule is work in English, and in English. That's it.
Okay. Okay. So something important about providing these rules in a designed instruction is rigor. So it allows students to be more rigorous with what they have to do. You can say, okay, so Ruth, you were saying, oh, I always have to repeat in English, no? O sea, please, teacher in English. But if it's written in the instructions, they're not going to say, teacher, do we have to do it in English? No, because it's right there. So you would tell them like, did you read the instructions? Go back and look at this. No, and it's gonna avoid you having to in English, and because you have the rule right there, right? And that's that's the key, because that's what gives students more autonomy in their process, and that's what makes it flipped. We're not explaining it over and over again. All right. Awesome. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next one is roles. So something that works really well is telling students what roles they have within a group activity. When we leave it very open, um, students don't do the work. No, in a group of four, it's like, only one person did everything. Like this allows students to completely engage into the task because you're giving them the responsibility of the role, right? So here we see there's a timer, there's a note taker, there's a screen sharer because this is virtual. Someone has to share the screen, and there's a reporter. And then they have to choose, right? So then I know teacher. It was in the instructions, right? Can you think of any roles that would apply to your task about giving advice and the one about applying for a job? Ruth.
Well, I have a monitor in my classes, and it is very useful. So they help me to control the time. But related to the activity for people in the job, they have specific roles: the interviewer and the interviewee. So they have to play it. That is and it's clear, no confusion.
Yeah, that's crystal clear right there.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Rita?
Okay, so yes, of course, my students have each one a role when we do group work. I have a monitor in each one of the groups. I have a timer, and I have a secretary, someone who take notes and to report at the end of the activity.
Great. There you go. So if we have it in a place where it's displayed to students all the time, right? Remember, we're talking about access. They have access to the instructions. We hope there won't be a lot of confusion or a lot of teacher repeat. No? Okay,
Yeah.
great. The next one is the steps. So we're not going to go into the step because I got you like on the spot. But clarity in the steps is key. Yes. So telling students, first you're going to do this, like first you're going to work in groups, then you're going to do this, then you're going to do that. Like each step is really important so that students can be autonomous in the activity. If we miss a step, right, that's where students are going to ask us, teacher, y aquí, teacher, do we have to do this here? And you're like, forgot to put that step, right? And that's where we can go in and adapt, like make those changes. So just keep in mind those steps. Steps take a little longer, not on the spot, so I'm not going to ask you on the spot, but if you have the steps in your mind of an activity you've already done, then putting it on paper, putting it, digital, will take a little thinking time of, okay, am I being clear? Because sometimes when we speak, we elaborate the instructions a lot. In flipped instructions, it's to the point. Do this, second this, third this, fourth that, right? The next one is the task. So the task is, what do they have to do by the end of this activity, right? In this example, students have to do a mind map. Like, they have to show something. That gives them accountability. That shows me that there's evidence of their work as a group. In your cases, what would that task be? Rita?
The final task is when the students show the role play or act the role play. This is the final task.
Okay, exactly.
After,
the
yes.
acting of it. Okay, great.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
The
and what
action.
about you, Ruth?
Well, the task, the final task is to get the job. If they don't get the job, is the interviewer must give them reasons why not. But that is the task. Present the interview and get the job.
Okay. So yeah, well, you've given, actually, the both of you have given examples of activities that like are a task in themselves. No, there's a role play. I mean,
Yeah.
there's something to show. But sometimes, for example, in a group discussion activity, which is the one that you're seeing here, sometimes there's not sometimes we put them to talk, right? But then what do they have to show? So the recommendation here, when it's not as evident, like it's a role play, right? Or it's a job interview. When it's not as evident, is to think of something they can show, some evidence, even if it's taking notes, or like we see it here, a mind map, or a visual, representation, etc. Right? That's what's gonna put students super focused, right? Because if they're like, no, the teachers, we're working, and the teacher's not gonna see, we're not gonna present anything.
Okay. So,
Then-
for example, they can present the dialogue they are going to make in the interview, right? Show
Yes.
the dialogue. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So that's accountability. So it's
Yeah.
not like, so, because sometimes these activities kind of stay like in the air. Like we do them and we're like, oh, okay, nice. Yeah, like good job. No, here it's like you have to show something for it. Okay.
Okay.
Great. All right. Okay. And the last one is language. And, as language teachers that we are, we're always, we always want to scaffold a process. We want to give students those, those building blocks, or we want to, take them through the steps little by little so that they can actually learn how to apply the language. And so it's a really good idea to have a specific section in your instructions that tell them what they need to use, right? The example of what you were saying, Rita, when you were talking about giving advice, like should, right?
Yes.
That's the key structure there, right? So if they're going to give advice and you have a little box for them that says, okay, expressions for giving advice, students will keep them in mind, and this will help them express themselves with more confidence. Remember, we talked about confidence at the beginning as well. Students being able to gain more confidence, or in the chat they had mentioned it. So this helps them. You're not just leaving them there like, hi, go. No. Here are some of the key expressions. You need to use them, but I'm kind of guiding you in what language you can use, right? So for me, it's clear what the advice one could be. I'm not so sure, Ruth, about the job interview. What language could they use there?
I think that my role here is, well, guiding them and monitoring them and giving them feedback. But are you referring to the specific language?
Yeah. Like if you tell students you're going to do, okay, you have to apply for a job.
Yeah.
For example, do they need to use like strong action verbs, or do they need to ask questions?
I think no, we can use phrasal verbs. Asking
Okay.
but phrasal verbs are an expression related to those phrasal verbs because they can apply them and use them.
There you go. So it could be the phrasal verbs, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be the grammar structure, or just the examples. The languages.
Or focusing on how to make the questions correctly,
For
formal
example.
English, yeah, and
For
learn how
example.
to answer them, yeah.
For example, yeah. Or if we're teaching something about skills, like can and can't, so we can give them the
Okay.
example of I can, for example, I can, I can't, etc. No, or verb to
Etc.
be, the simple. Getting to know each other. What's your name? My name is, simple, simple, simple. We're teaching
Very
students
simple.
how to say their name. Language box. What's your name? My name is ta ta ta. And then they follow it, and they can, and we are scaffolding that process, right?
Or
Okay.
the bridge words. Why do you consider you are right for
Exactly.
this job?
Yeah. Here we
Yeah.
can think of all the possibilities within English
Many-
language, but
Many
it's
possibilities.
extremely helpful for the student for
Yeah.
scaffolding. Like that's the
Yeah.
purpose. We want to help them in that process. All right. Okay. So with this, we've got all those key elements of flipped instructions. So I'm just going to show kind of what it could look like, kind of like a template type of thing. This varies. You don't have to use them all, but it is a good idea to use, to always include time. Always, of course, the steps, super clear. I would say always include the task. And depending on the type of activity, if it's individual, then there are no roles or turn taking, right? If it's group work, then yes, put the roles, put the turns, etc. So you decide what fits your context, your topic. What would work better for you. So
Yeah.
just one example. This is a design that I did in PowerPoint. Yes, you can do this in PowerPoint. You could do this. If you want to use more elaborate tools, John was telling us about what teachers said, like Genially. John loves Genially. We can do this. I love Genially. In more elaborate, but we don't have to. I've done instructions on paper. This is the example of just like the steps. But it doesn't have to be using technology. You can make the instructions, take a picture, and send it to your students, for example, in WhatsApp. Like if we're having issues with connection, or we only have WhatsApp, then we could send it to them. Like take a picture and send them the instructions so that they know what we're doing, right? So, okay, some ideas there for you. Thank you so much for your participation in this challenge on the run.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so putting you now. Okay, this one now is the question of what instructions could you flip tomorrow, dear audience? After doing this exercise with us on the run, hashtag flip instructions. What instructions do you think you could flip tomorrow? When I say tomorrow, it doesn't necessarily have to be tomorrow, Thursday, no. But tomorrow, super soon. As soon as you have an activity, right? Not on the long term, short term. Something you're like, hey, I could actually do this. So please write in the chat. And Rita and Ruth, I'm gonna ask you, what are you thinking? What instructions could you start flipping, as soon as possible? Let's start with you, Rita.
Okay, I think I can flip demonstrations, since they can get the material on the platform that is Google Classroom, and I can also share other resources with them, such as videos, to help them to prepare the classes. So I think that with this, they will be ready when they go and meet a teacher and other classmates in the classroom. We can take advantage of a lot of things, and we can
Absolutely.
motivate this previous knowledge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And giving them that clarity, no, with these instructions. Okay, great. Ruth, what about you?
Okay, as I am working on this topic, and I have 3 different groups from 11th graders, I think that tomorrow I will flip instructions when doing an interview job.
You got it.
Yeah, I got it.
If you have it on paper, it's ready. Just put it,
Yeah.
put it a little more clear for students, and you got it right there. Okay,
And that's
awesome.
because I am working with them now. So,
Okay, they're perfect. That's wonderful. So okay, I was actually thinking with what you mentioned, Ruth, also like you're using videos and you're using audios, right? Instructions could be flipped in a visual form, right? Like the one I was showing you here, right? It could be something visual, it could be design, it could be on paper, etc. But instructions could also be using your voice.
yeah.
So I could record myself on my,
A
on a
WhatsApp
recorder on my
message.
phone or any tool that I have, and I could say like, okay, hi students. Today we're going to work on applying for a job. Listen to the instructions. First, you're going to get in groups of blah, blah, blah. You have exactly 2 hours to finish this full activity. And then, like it could be, okay, it shouldn't be super mega long, but it could be audio, it could be a video. The teacher like, hey, everyone, all right, so I'm going to tell you what we're going to do today. You're watching me, my video, YouTuber. We're going to do this and this. Remember, groups of 3. You have to use this language. Let me show you. Like, you can do it in so many ways. So just so we don't restrict it to, just thinking that it has to be a visual, or a digital type of thing, right? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I am wondering if we've got any comments on the chat. Okay, so let's go back to our question. Okay. And John, have we got any comments on the chat?
We do. Hello. Yes, teachers are very thoughtful about answering this question. Okay, but we have some answers. For example, Andrea Medellin, she says hashtag flip instructions. Take into account clear and sequenced steps to do the task. Is not an instruction, but it's just a recommendation, sort of it. Alba Jacqueline Arisa says flip instructions that she would do, reviewing step by step to develop each activity. Pay attention to the evaluations sent to your teachers. Erika Vargas says flip instructions. Watch this video, listen to this audio, prepare an oral presentation about. We have just a few comments on this question. I guess teachers haven't thought about that. You mentioned it. You said that once you were like, hey, I haven't flipped instructions. Why don't we start doing it? So
Exactly.
I guess we're learning. I was taking notes here also because this is a very important part of teaching, right? Of interaction. That's basically it. Okay, profile. Okay, now we have more comments, but that's
we
basically
got more
my
comments
comment.
coming in.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Comments.
Yeah, I think the reflection, I mean, if they're thinking about it, that's the whole point. This is not
Yeah.
just like, oh, it came to me super fast. No, we did, like that's why we're, doing this one by one and then thinking about a specific activity. Sometimes it just doesn't come to us, right? But
Yes.
okay, so we got more.
But teachers are very interested on this masterclass, Martin. They are asking us if they can have access to the material. So I just want to let teachers know that once you register, remember you can register in the top of the chat or scanning the QR code. You register, you get your certificate, and you will have access to the presentation too. So yes, I guess by reviewing the masterclass and accessing the material, you will have plenty of resources to work on, teachers.
Yeah, and I'll be sending. I have a blog post about just
Also,
flipping instructions. So
also, yeah,
you'll be receiving it, and you can check it in in more detail and make
sure.
decisions of what makes sense. Okay. All right. So are we good to move forward, or is there anything
Yeah,
else?
yes, I guess so. So we have no more comments.
All right.
Of course, there's something very important here. Is that I already mentioned about the registration, and I guess we're ready to take action. I guess let's move on to the next section, please.
All right.
Good.
All right. So, oh, I think I'm sorry.
It's okay. Okay, technique number 2. I'm sorry, I was moving to another section.
It's okay.
Forget
It's
about
okay.
it. Okay. It's
All
okay,
right. So,
Marta, go ahead.
all right. Thank you, John. So, our technique number 2, or the second technique that I want to share with you and recommend is doing a post-class flip. So let me clarify a little bit what that's about. So, right now, some of us are online. Some of us, right? We talked about this at the beginning, where some are still fully virtual. Some are giving face-to-face classes. Some are giving classes that have like an asynchronous focus. Some of us are doing everything, like online, face-to-face, asynchronous, synchronous, and that's where the hybrid comes in. But there's a question. The big question is, how can students access content after the class has finished? So we give this class, right? Synchronous online, okay, or face-to-face virtual at the same time, or and this is a really important question, because I have seen in many contexts that since we're explaining the content in real time, then what happens with that access. So I want to share with you some ideas, and we'd be really happy to hear you and hear you read you through the chat, even if you have comments that are not necessarily regarding the hashtag. Anything you have to say and experiences you have to share, I know are very enriching for everyone who's in the chat and for all of us. So some questions to keep in mind. I've given the class. Can I record it? Can I go through the planning process thinking of student access, like from the beginning? Or can I maybe make a really quick summary with bullet points after the class has finished that I could share with my students? Can I create an audio? Can I record myself saying, in audio, hey students, so just for those of you who missed class, this is what we did first, and not a 2-hour audio, no synthesis, but spoken, kind of like the bullet points, but spoken. Or can I share maybe a resource that supports what I explained in class, and that's going to allow students to catch up? So there are many ways that we can flip. I've called it a post-class flip, which is taking that class that we already taught and making it accessible to my students. And again, the key word here is accessibility. That's the big word. So I want to show you some examples of how I'm making my classes accessible to my students. And I've chosen different examples. And I'd like you to think of, how could this, how can you see this in your own context? So here you're seeing just a class that I gave about presentations, and I use my Bitmoji. So I literally write, presentations, and I have the image. But you'll see some don't even have images when I don't have time. So the intention of doing a post-class flip is not for it to be extra work for you. No. If we are thinking like in a hybrid mode, and we're thinking of accessibility, you will notice that there's a lot of things that you already have that you can flip, that you use in class and that you can make accessible after the class to students, that's not going to really require you additional preparation, additional, writing, not that much. So looking at this presentations, I wrote 3 sentences, right? We completed this, nice job. We also, we did this and we did this. And in class, what you're seeing there about the structure, I wrote it, in my whiteboard. And what I did was I took a screenshot and then I, put the screenshot so that students could remember. If there was a student who didn't come and they see this, at least they're not going to ask me, teacher, what did we do in class? It's there, right? And I can come in and clarify, but they have like some key information. On the right side, you'll see it's kind of like a summary, So we use the tool. These were the questions that you asked. I prepared this before the class. I wrote the questions and I wrote the instruction and I put in the text and I put in the sketch note. And then when students finished the class, I posted this, right? So then students who couldn't come could look at the sketch note, analyze, but they had access. Not fully to everything I said, no. To the interaction we all had, no. But they weren't in the dark, right? Other examples, some a little more elaborate when I'm planning them. Again, nothing too, just like a Bitmoji there. And again, taking the screenshot of what I'm doing, online or using the whiteboard, and then just putting the questions that they're going to use in the class. And then I make this accessible for them, right? But notice that in this one about writing conclusions, I had a PowerPoint presentation and I shared it with them. I already had it. I didn't have to make a new PowerPoint presentation. I just shared it with them so they could revise it. And I had a student who told me she wasn't going to make it to class if I could please record, and I recorded, right? But I don't record every class. Yes, it's a matter of context, what your students need, and of course your possibilities. And on the right side, you're going to see the instruction on the top part, this right here. That's my summary. Again, presentation, that's it. And I teach some classes at UPTC that I mentioned. And with them, I upload every slide. Like I have the slides and I download them in PDF and I put them in the platform and that's it. So these are some ideas of how you can, do that post-class flip when we think of, not having to repeat what we did in class. And in some cases, the presentations we use are already self-explanatory, are already, helpful to students. And so a question to you, to ponder on is, if I'm making presentations, can my students see them? If I'm using online tools where the explanations are, do they see them? Am I putting the links of the videos we see in class so they could see them later if they want to repeat them, right? So if it's a platform or if it's WhatsApp or whatever option you have, if we think in terms of accessibility, for sure, it's going to make a big difference with your students, right? Okay. So I'm going to invite, after this technique number 2, again, Rita and Ruth to join me. And the audience, please tell us how your students access content. Rita and Ruth had told us that they use platforms, right? That they use videos. So, right? Okay. Is there? So both of you. So question, because we've already discussed this a little bit, but question. While the audience answers a little, answers with the hashtag. You both mentioned you use a platform, right? Rita, you use Google Classroom, correct? Yes. Okay. And Ruth, what do you use? What platform do you use?
No, it's a platform that the teacher of technology design and create is very easy. We don't have to pay anything. No Google Classroom, because it is too complicated for them and we have to pay. So the teacher decided and that's it. But I would like to say something, dear teacher Marta. When I listened to you, I think I was flipping in my classroom and I didn't know it. because I do something similar to you. I allow my monitors to record me when I am giving the instructions, when I am making the explanation of the guide. And they have an internet group, and they are very collaborative because we practice collaborative learning. Also, they share the information by Bluetooth because as they don't have internet, they share that. So that's good, and I feel really identified with what you just said. Thanks.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. You know, when I encountered the concept of flipped learning, like when I did research and actually found out there's a term called flipped learning, I had that same like, oh, I was
Yeah,
doing this, and it's called flipping, of course.
uh,
So a lot of
I,
us,
I
yeah,
just found that, and it's good. Thanks.
there you go. So now you're like, I'm flipping. And that's
I'm
what I've been
flipping.
doing.
I'm flipping, and I didn't know it yet.
And because it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
In the end, it makes sense. Okay.
and I think that we are very creative, and we, the teacher, have to do many things and on the go think and make decisions. That I think that that this kind of situation help us to be better, to improve, to do many things with them.
That's right. And you know what? Because sometimes we think a lot about preparation of time, and we think about, you know, like for example, I imagine Rita making the guides. Uh,
Yeah,
how much, you know, it takes time to make guides. It takes time to make a PowerPoint. It takes time. It takes time to Google and find a good video. All of this takes time,
yeah,
right? But if we have it in a specific place, we're sharing it, etc. Next time around, we've already got a repertoire of flipped resources that we can use, you know, and then it's going to save time for the future. So I think that's, you know, that's the things I love about flipping. Apart from all the benefits of meaningful learning and, you know, connection with students, so many things. Um, okay, so John, uh, you wanna tell us if we've got some answers? I know our time is,
Sure.
we're having such a great conversation, so
Yeah,
we'll
I
we'll
guess
let go.
we teachers are more active right now with this question. No, Andrea Medellin says hashtag content access. I use Google presentation for my classes. When the class is finished, I share it in Google Classroom so they can access it. So just sort of as we were discussing before. Some other teachers, for example, Mireya Esther Dominguez says Google Classroom or school worksheets. Some other people share printed material, which is also valid. Luzmila
Exactly.
Mora says recorded videos, PowerPoint presentations, or presentations through different platforms. Um, Dexy Barros, WhatsApp, via WhatsApp groups. They can find guides that she sends and videos with the explanation of the activities. So I guess I infer that she records a video, sends it through WhatsApp, and sends a guide along with it. I guess.
Great.
Yes, that's basically it.
Okay, awesome.
Good.
Thank you, John. All right, so let's continue with our with our third technique. Um, and so with our technique number three, I mentioned, okay, technique number two was do a post-class flip. Now I want to tell you about in-class flip. And this is the work that I have done with my dear friend and colleague, Carolina R. Buitrago, which is like the one you see right there with me. And so Caro and I came up with configurations to doing flip in class when you do not, you know, want to leave the content as homework, or just basically the only space you have is within, you know, those four walls or digital walls of your classroom. So I'm going to briefly explain some of these types of configurations, and then I will be sharing with you, you know, additional resources where you can go more in depth about how these work. So the first thing is, so there are two types of in-class flip. The first one is in situ in-class flip, and it is basically when we ask our students to access the flipped content in, by themselves, with someone else, or in a group. And for example, the video, we show them a video with the explanation, and then we follow up. That's an in situ, in-class flip. How we do it, if it's solo or if it's duo or if it's group, well, that depends on the interaction between students. Let me give you an example. So this is an example of a lesson plan that I designed about descriptive paragraphs, which is basically writing a how-to, a paragraph that describes a process. So with my students, I had my lesson plan and I said, okay, so we're going to, make a mind map to outline. Step number 1, you're going to define a key term, and I'm going to show you a visual explanation, which is the flipped content. So I'm not explaining the definition. Then they do writing with some words, and I show them a website where the explanation is, right? Then they have to write their title, their concluding sentence, and their paragraph. This is an example. This was an individual task. So this was a solo in situ flip. And if you notice, I had 2 types of flip content: the explanation of definitions and the explanation of process words. So this is one example. Like if they do it in a linear way, that's an in situ. The second type of in-class flip is station work. And there are 4 configurations. The first one is sequenced, as the word says, or as its name says. Students start in one with the flip content, and then they move on to the next ones. So they have the explanation, right? And then they go to the practice, etc. The mixed allows more movement. So the mixed is thought for students who might not need the explanation, right? So I have a flipped station with the explanation, for example, of the verb to be. And I have students who already know the verb to be. So in this mixed configuration, they can choose to skip the flipped station and move around because it's not linear, no? So that's important. And then there's an independent station where students can move to if the stations are too full of students, which is very helpful in pandemic, that we don't want students to be, a lot of students in one station. The other one is called, the other one is called the looped. And the looped is when students have to, like a loop, they have to close the loop. They have to do all the activities in the stations. And sometimes the flip stations are outside where the explanations are, and they can go there and come back. Or sometimes they're within the stations. And basically they move in a loop, which means students can start anywhere and then rotate. And the half and half is when half of the group is working with the teacher in feedback or support, and the other half is working in flipped content, and then they switch. Okay, so that's just a brief explanation of how this works, and I'm going to show you, what this looks like in pandemic. So you can do, if you're in hybrid mode, you can create the physical stations with your students, and then you can create a digital station with your students, which is basically, they can click, depends on the tool you want to use. You can do this in PowerPoint. They can click, and it's going to take them to a slide that tells them what the instructions are, and they follow, the stations, even though they're, virtually not moving. The feel is that it is using stations. All right, so I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask John to tell us what's coming next. And we know John takes a little.
Yes. I'm back. Well, we have a lot of teachers' comments, but due to time constraints, we need to move on. And thank you, teachers, for your comments. We'll be reading you later on, because I would like to invite everybody to post your questions. Teachers, post your questions. I know that Marta is more than willing to answer them. Right, Marta?
Absolutely.
Definitely. And I guess we have to move fast to our next section. After this techniques, are we done with the techniques? I don't want to mess it up like some minutes before.
Yeah, well, we're done with the techniques. I had a question.
Yes.
Oh, Sorry, my slides are going crazy. Which
It's okay.
was, for the audience, and I think the audience could write it as we move
Let's
along, so we can see what they're thinking. Which is, what type of in-class flip could they apply in their context from
based on what you just explained.
exactly. Like, do you think it's more like a sequence type of thing, that I'm going to put them in pairs and groups, or individually to access the content with me, or do I want to give stations a try, whether they are virtual or physical? So you might want to take the screenshot of the names, in case you forget them. In situ is linear,
Yes.
looped, mixed, half and half. Remember, teacher, half teacher. And the sequenced is pretty straightforward. Looped also, they close the loop. Okay. Anyway, so I think we can move on to the next section, and then you can comment on some of these responses. Does that sound good?
It definitely sounds good to me. So teachers, we encourage you to tell us what type of in-class flip would you apply, okay, to your content. In situ, looped, mixed, half and half, or sequence. After this next section, and before the questions and answers, we'll be reading your responses. So I guess we're ready to move on to taking action section.
All right. So with these 3 techniques that I've shared with you today, let's look at specific action steps. The first one is, and I guess you guessed it, flip instructions you repeat the most. That's where you want to start. So if there's any type of situation where you're again and again and again, that's where you want to start, right? Some instructions are more complex than others. But usually the ones that we repeat, if we've got them flipped, imagine how many seconds or minutes you're going to save on having to go back and repeating, and how helpful this is going to be for your students to develop all these different skills that I mentioned. For this, we need to definitely think hybrid, depending on your context. So if you are in a physical, if you're in a physical setting and you want to take them printed or by hand or scan, photocopy them, that's fine. In a poster, like, all of these possibilities are wonderful and they work. But if you're in a hybrid teaching model at this point, you're going to take the physical instructions. What happens with your students who are online? What happens with your students who are in a remote area, who are only going to be able to access through maybe WhatsApp or email? So when you're planning it, think hybrid. Make them digital and physical, or just digital if you have the opportunity to project them, right? It depends, of course. It will depend, of course, on your context. All right. The second one, choose the most relevant content to make available to students. So in this post-class flipping, right, I'm going to, again, choose what is the most important thing. It's not making it's not repeating the class. It's not writing a full essay that explains everything you explain in 2 hours. No. Bullet points. What's the most important thing that students need to know so that at least they're not lost? Or, if they access that PowerPoint, is that going to really help them move forward if they couldn't assist class, for example, or if they need to review? And in terms of content, it could be anything. We mentioned this already, right? It could be a video, a PowerPoint, a doc, an image. It could be a picture. It could be, I did it on paper, sent it through WhatsApp, a screenshot, whatever. And the content, again, it can be so many things. If you want to just stick to instructions, go for it, right? Instead of notice how if you flip instructions that you give in the real live class, and you make them accessible then after you make them accessible for students, then that's a way to post class flip as well. Okay, and the third action step is designing stations for hybrid classes. So how can we do this? Like it's an invitation. If we have some students in the physical classroom, they need to move. It can't be all like, oh, we're gonna, just connect from our phones if we have phones, or we're just gonna stay still here and then project the people who are online. It's gonna be a little, we want to put some movement in it. If it makes sense to you, you can do this just by starting with a linear plan, like the example that I showed you, and then moving it, it's taking each step and converting it into a station. That's the formula, basically. So many of you, those super mega classes that you design, where there's an explanation, there's an activity, et cetera, you can literally convert it into a station. Think of each step as a possible station that you can design with your students. All right. So with this, we are done with our 3 action steps. And so, John, welcome
Great.
back.
Yeah, I'm back. Look, Andrea Medellin Herrera says, I would like to try out the looped technique. Okay. We have Gloria Montoya says, in-class flip tryout, in situ. Okay. We have Olga Lucia Kitian says, in-class flip tryout, mixed. At this moment, 8 students of the same grade in face-to-face classes and 30 online at the same time in my school. Okay. So these are some of the comments from the teachers. Marta, I would like also talking to teachers on this streaming masterclass. I would like you teachers to go, if you haven't, have you checked out eco.colombiaaprende.edu.co? If you haven't, please, we would love to go there, visit this webpage, okay? You will find hundreds and hundreds of resources through our strategy, Eco Teams. Okay, so we will be back to our next section, Marta, the recap. See you in a minute. Stay tuned.
What is ECO Teams? Well, ECO stands for English for Colombia, and it is an educational radio program designed to promote English language learning while exploring different fields like technology, arts, tourism, and sports. The program is designed for teens and presented by teens, Rosita, Aleja, Ana, and Lucho, together with Julian, their English teacher. In the program, they share their life projects and help other young people see the benefits of speaking English.
All right, everyone. So let's do a recap of these techniques and action steps. So the first technique was to flip instructions, and the action step was to flip repeated instructions, right? Those instructions that I tend to repeat the most and that will save me, even if it's seconds or a couple of minutes of my class, it will be meaningful. We need every minute of our class for meaningful learning. The second one is to post-class flip, to do a post-class flip. And for this, just choose the most relevant content that you consider students should have access to. And the last one, in-class flip. And the action step could be to design stations for hybrid classes. So that's a wrap up in terms of today's techniques and action steps. John?
Yes, thank you, Martha, for this recap. I guess that slide summarizes it all. And I have teachers asking me about the certificate. Please, teachers, remember, you have to go on the upper part of the chat. You will find a blue section there. You click there, you register. As soon as you register, okay, you will get your certificate with all the resources and all. Please do that. We're going to have the next section. We're wrapping this up. We're closing this masterclass. And we have a couple of questions. And I know the teachers, our guest teachers, have also questions. So please, we encourage you, if you have any question, go post it right now, because we move on the next section, questions and answers. Okay. We have our guest teachers. Hey, it's good to see you back in here.
Long time no see.
Oh, okay. We have this the can you see there? Oh, okay, now they got it the QR code also for scanning. We have a couple of questions, but I guess first our guest teachers.
Who goes first? Me?
Okay,
Well,
go ahead.
well, now I really feel happy today because when you finish talking, I feel really identified with this. And everything is wonderful, colorful. And I would like to ask the expert, um, according to your experience, have you found any disadvantage of applying this flipped learning?
Disadvantage? No.
Challenges, maybe.
Challenges? Yeah,
Or
because
challenges, yes. Yeah, I wouldn't place it as. For me, disadvantages is no. I see so many advantages, so many benefits. Of course, I'm super biased because I've been doing this for so many years. Challenges, yes. Choosing the content is a challenge. If I'm gonna choose, if I'm gonna curate content, it's a challenge because sometimes some topics you find everywhere. You want to find verb to be, you're gonna find verb to be everywhere. Somebody already did a super mega wonderful, awesome presentation, video, audio of verb to be. Okay, so there you're like, ooh. But then there's very specific content or very specific types of tasks that we do that that are individual or what is the term I want to use? Like they're very specific to our teaching style that you're not going to Google, you're not going to find it on YouTube, you're not going to find it anywhere. And so I think that's trying to find certain things is a challenge. And creating can also be a challenge depending on our skills, depending on the resources that we have. So I think the most important thing when I talk about flipping and like flipping, in-class flipping, post-class flipping, etc., is making decisions based on our context, right? It's not, oh, this teacher's doing this, but I don't have those resources. Okay, then that's not the thing for you. So I think kind of that differentiation could be a challenge, but like anything, when you get the hang of it, when you start doing it, when you start using, the resources, or you start creating your own resources, then it starts to flow. And the most important thing is the benefits. Like when you see the benefits with your students and you live the meaningfulness of your learning context when you've flipped, and of course I'm a super advocate of flipping, so I'm talking about flipping, you don't want to go back. And you think that the time it takes is worth it. So yeah, that's my.
I would like to. I would like to interrupt because I know that we have another question, but just following this this reflection, Marta, Natalie Betancourt has a question on the chat. It's not a question, but I want to pose it as one. Okay, she writes this comment. I really think that this way of teaching is great, but most of us teachers are not prepared to do so. It's a comment, but I would like to pose it as a question. What would teachers, and I know we discussed that on that previous masterclass that we had weeks before, but what would you recommend for teachers to start flipping? They think that they might think this is too much. They might think this is too complex, or it requires a lot of skills, technology, and all. So, what would you recommend as the step by step?
My number one recommendation is flip instructions. You already give them. You already think about them. You already plan them. Like even if you're talking about them in your mind on paper in your planner, you had to, do a process. So, and we lived it here with Rita and Ruth. We did it in real time. I mean, thinking, right? But so it's not difficult to flip instructions and take it step by step. Yes, that's right. That's the thing. Like one step at a time. Do something small. Don't go crazy flipping your whole class and no.
Yes.
One thing. Instructions. Okay, start there. That's it.
Thank you very much. Now, okay, that I wanted to have the question on the same line, so let's continue. With the next question. Rita, I guess you have the next question. Rita, I guess you're on mute.
Okay, no.
Okay, now you're not. I'm sorry.
Now, yes, no problem. Okay, so I think that I'm going to try to start with this flip classroom and flip learning. I'm going to try to do, yes?
Good.
But I would like to share in 1 month, in some time, with you, Marta, about this. I don't know if it is possible to share with you.
I love that idea. Yes.
And to ask you to recommend me how can I improve. And I have another question. If it is necessary to give homework, we are using flipped classroom and flipped learning.
That is such a good question. That is a really good question. Why? Because one of the big errors that we teachers make when we start flipping is that we don't flip. What we do is, oh, you have this homework, this exercise, this activity, and a part, surprise, I'm going to add the flipped content. No, we do not add the flipped content. We flip. If in the past you did, for example, giving advice, I don't know, a giving advice, fill in the blanks activity. That was the homework, right? So now you're going to flip. So you give them the explanation of giving advice in a video or whatever you want to use. And then the homework that you used to do before, they do it in class. And you monitor the process. That's what makes it flipping. That's why I love that question, because that's what clarifies in reality what we're flipping. We're not giving them the applicability tasks for home. They're doing that with us so we can monitor and guide the process. Thank you so much for that question. And yes, you can write to me to me. Please tell me how you do. I would love to know. Thank you.
Okay, you can follow Marta on Twitter. She's very active there. Okay, and you can contact her also, not only for you teachers, but also for everybody out there. Okay, we're closing. We're 1 minute away from finishing this masterclass, and I would like to thank you teachers first, our guest teachers, for being here and sharing all your experiences, thoughts, and reflections on this flipped learning. Also, thank you to all the teachers on YouTube. On this streaming, your chat, your comments are very, very important for us and help us keep the conversation flowing. Marta, as always, it's a pleasure. We're learning a lot from you. And I guess this is a very current and important topic right now that we're on the verge of coming back to schools in manera presencial, face-to-face classes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. We also would like to invite you to our next masterclass, okay? So everybody's invited here, teachers, you guest teachers. Marta, if you want to know, because I know some of you follow us too. Octubre 7, okay, Octubre 7, 4 a 6 p.m. Cómo generar experiencias de aprendizaje duraderas en la presencialidad a través de la curiosidad y creatividad. 3 cosas: curiosidad, creatividad en el contexto de la presencialidad. Estaremos con Carolina Rodríguez Buitrago, creo que te suena ese nombre, muy bonito, y te saludó Carolina ahorita en el chat y tal, con el emoji y tal. Bien, fantástico. Estaremos el 7 de octubre, nos veremos aquí en Masterclass Thank you very much. Gracias a todos, profes de todo Colombia, a profesores invitados, Marta. Gracias al Consejo Británico, al Ministerio de Educación Nacional por esta estrategia. Muchas gracias. Cuídense, por favor. Lavado de manos, distanciamiento social. Chao, chao.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Goodbye, everybody.